Todd, do you want to do a little introduction really
Yeah,
quickly before we start?
yeah. Thank you, Clarissa. I'm honored to be here. I'm the owner of Cybersecurity for Biz. My goal is to bring enterprise level cybersecurity down to solopreneurs and micro businesses with less than 10 employees. The laws don't change. The information that we need to protect other people's financial information, medical information, things like that. But the resources are not available for smaller businesses. So that's one of the things I'm trying to change.
Great. I'm so glad to have you on. I knew within the first couple of minutes of talking with him after I initially met him, he just spit out so much information that I was not aware of because I am not really in any way in the tech world. If you're not in a particular sphere, it's amazing the lack of information you have about that sphere. That is why I'm having him on because I think that a lot of my listeners are going to benefit from the information that you bring.
I've been a computer geek since I was a teenager. Not to date myself too much, but way back when Dungeons and Dragons board game came out, and then they come out with an online game. This is back when computer screens were black with the green writing on them. And I wanted it so bad. Back then, computers cost more than cars, and nobody had one in their house. My dad was like, "There's no way I'm buying you a computer." I finally convinced him to take me to Radio Shack and bought a box of parts and built my own computer. I've been a computer geek since I was like 16. What happened was throughout the years of career choices and changing careers, I ended up taking a class on ethical hacking and was just completely fascinated and totally changed the trajectory. So what brought me to the specific question of what defining moment brought me to helping small businesses, my best friend got hacked and he was a DJ. At the time, I was working for the Marine Corps developing software for the command and control of the battlefield. And of course, everything, the information, the software, the people using it, everything's secret. So cybersecurity was a huge part of that. He called me up and he's like, "You got to find somebody to help me." We start Googling and looking for companies that will help him get his data back. And we couldn't find one. All these big companies, all the companies that everybody can remember the names of, you see the ads on TV, they only cater to large and enterprise level businesses. They won't touch you if you don't have 10,000 employees. So we finally found one that said small business and we call them and they're like, "Oh yeah, we love small business. You got to have at least 250 employees, 5 guys in your IT department, 10 million in revenue." That's not a small business. What about the solopreneur, right? I ended up helping my best friend in my spare time. He brought a couple other people that he knew that ran into trouble. I'd helped several people out, of course, for free on nights and weekends. And he just kept poking at me until he finally convinced me to open my own business catering specifically towards solopreneurs and micro businesses. It fit in with my lifestyle anyways, because I'm retired military. So I'm all about a mission anyways. I got to have something bigger than a paycheck to motivate me to get up and do my job in the morning. So now my mission is just to help as many solopreneurs as I can. So
It's funny that you mentioned what the old computers used to look like. I spoke at an event a couple of weeks ago, and I actually mentioned if we still were relying on technology that we learned in the 80s, we would still all be on TRS 80s because
mhm.
that's what I learned on. And that's
Yeah,
dating me. That's what I learned on in high
yeah.
school.
That's the one that I had. So I didn't get to buy a trash 80. I had to go buy the parts and come home and build it myself. And then my next computer after that was a, Commodore 64, and then I think 3 or 4 years later or something like that, I finally got a when Windows come up with 3.1 that had a stack of 16 floppy disks, I finally got a Windows computer that was capable of running that. Now I've got a computer that'll launch the whole NASA mission,
Nice.
yeah.
It seems like this is an area that you constantly have to stay ahead of whatever the security threats are. You're in an industry where you are going to have to constantly up your skill for one thing. And I would assume sometimes it's hard to anticipate how you are going to upskill yourself since you have to stay one step ahead. That's what you always hear is you have to stay one step ahead of the hackers.
First of all, yes, there's definitely that where you've got to stay a step ahead, and as they learn new ways of hacking in, you got to figure out how to prevent that. But I will say, Hollywood gives America, the whole world, misinterpretation of how hacking really happens. You know, all the movies show some guy in a hoodie in his mom's basement clacking away on a keyboard in the middle of the night. That's not how typical hacking happens. I mean, yes, that does happen, but that's usually more targeted attacks against a certain business. mostly a larger business or government or something like that. Nobody woke up in Russia this morning going, "Oh, I got to hack Clarissa today." More commonly, a lot of people don't realize 92% of data breaches are caused by human error.
Gotcha.
And of the human error, now you're looking at disgruntled employees spilling coffee on your hard drive and blowing up your computer or whatever. The biggest chunk, 85% of the human error, is a phishing attack,
Okay.
which is where I like to focus my energy on awareness on the prevention side because I mean you put the 85% and the 92% together and do a bunch of math, and the reality is if we could just get people to quit clicking on phishing emails, we could pretty much eliminate data breach.
Wow.
It's making yourself aware, and I think of it like this. I use an analogy like a house, right? There's always gonna be people that know how to pick locks and they can get in. And on the homeowner side, you make sure you have a deadbolt, and when you're in a hotel, you flip the little chain thingy over the door or whatever. But you got alarms, you got all kinds of things that you can help prevent. And most of the time they work. But the reality is if somebody really wants into your house, it is get a big old pickup truck and drive right through your living room wall or whatever. They're coming in. And that's the way hacking is. If you're targeted and you've got people actually writing code trying to get in, they're gonna get in. But most of the time, it's through what we call social engineering, and they call it that because I can give you a Facebook quiz, and you tell me who your 3rd grade teacher was, where you met your boyfriend, and all these little cute questions that everybody answers on social media. If you'd stop and look at it, those are the same questions that you answered for your security questions for your bank account in case you forget your password. So now
Right.
I take your Facebook login, which is probably the same username that you use for your bank account, and I just have to guess what bank you have. If I start with Citibank and Bank of America, there's half the country right there. I just go in and find which bank and then hit the forgot password button and put in all the information you gave me on social media, and I'm in your account. Having strong passwords, having multi-factor authentication, making sure that you're being mindful of how much personally identifiable information you're giving out on the internet to people you don't know. These all could help you not be as vulnerable to the attacks.
So are you here to confirm then that the little warnings that we've gotten about all those little quizzes, those little cute Facebook quizzes, you are here to confirm what those warnings are saying is that you are just giving all of your personal
Yep,
information away and it is being used against you.
yep. I will confirm that. I even have a little pop quiz question that I throw out at people is what percentage of the population has enough information on their social media that I can go fill out and I can't get it because I don't have your birth certificate to verify it, but I could go fill out a driver's license application for you at DMV.
Oh, wow.
And the answer is 80%.
Wow. Wow. If a small business has little to no cybersecurity in place, what do you think is the first thing that they should do?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. If you're interested in cybersecurity, even if you're not, your basic home security, just things you should be doing at home on your computer you're paying your bills on. First thing you want is a strong password. And what I mean by strong password is 12 characters, letters, numbers, symbols, all mixed together. It can't be your dog's name with a number one at the end of it. It's got to be a word you can't find in the dictionary. So an example would be like the word learn, right? So Learn, you can find that in the dictionary. But if you put L3 at RN, you'll never find that in the dictionary. The reason why I say the dictionary is so important is because if you've ever used Word documents or PDFs and you hit Control F for the find button, and you can find the word marketing in a 200-page PDF and it'll pop up in seconds and tell you every page you found it on. That's how long it takes to crack your password if it's something that could be found in the dictionary. So
Nice.
that's the number one thing. The second thing is multi-factor authentication. This is one of those stomp your foot, the professor thing, what's going to be on the test. Multi-factor authentication, as it is right now, if I figure out what your username and password is to get into your bank account, there's 3 billion people on this planet that can open your bank account with the username and password. If you get multi-factor authentication, there's only a half a dozen people that have access to you and your phone that can intercept that text message and get that secret code. So you literally take the amount of people that can hack you from billions down to a handful.
Wow.
It's like a deadbolt lock on your front door. It's there. Why aren't you using it? It's so those are the 2 biggest things I think that you can really do to tighten your security up at home. The multi-factor, your bank's going to force you to use it, but all the social media, your utility bills, work accounts, all that stuff, a lot of times it's voluntary and they don't force you to use it. But
Right.
you should. Everywhere you could possibly sign up for it, do it.
And those 2 things don't cost anything.
No, they're free. It just takes you 5 minutes of your time and sitting still long enough to get it done, you know?
Exactly. Whether you're a business owner or not, whether you're just a person that is just surfing the web and you pay your bills online maybe, or you're doing average person banking online, if you have a handful of passwords for different sites you go to, anybody can do those things
Yep,
without anything out of pocket.
yep.
Now, when it comes to having an IT budget, are you somebody that works on a retainer, or if a company wanted to hire you to be their cybersecurity protection firm, what does that look like for a small business?
What that looks like with me is I've tried to make myself very user friendly for solopreneurs, and I have a lot of people working from home, and some of them are just getting started. And so I'm very uh, cognizant of typically in this industry is you're paying people labor charges up front, like a lawyer or a,
Mhm.
a business
Right.
coach where it's $3 or $4,000 up front. And a lot of people can't afford that. What I've done is I've made a payment plan. It's basically a 24-month contract. Most of the work is done in the first couple of months. And then after that, I'm on call if you need me, but it's a 24-month contract which allows me to spread the payments out for 24 months, like you do with buying your cell phone with the phone company and spread it out over the payment plan. That brings it down to a couple $100 a month, and it puts it more like a utility bill than a
Sure.
major investment. I would say as far as budgeting goes, industry experts say that you should have about 10% of your expenses should go to IT stuff, and about 10% of that should go to cybersecurity.
Okay.
So keep that in mind for when you're if you've got a business plan that shows you spending 3 or $4,000 a year on new laptops and printers and stuff, you should be spending 3 or $4,000 a year on cybersecurity. So
Gotcha. So then on a plan like that, does it work like they don't ever contact you unless they have a security threat, or are you monitoring and fastening up loose ends within their system and saying, "Hey, I noticed that you don't have this in place. We really need to get this in place." Just as an example of what that looks like in a day-to-day process.
the first thing I do is go in, I put security software on there. So we got 24/7 monitoring by cybersecurity professionals of all the activity that's happening. Every time you click one of them phishing emails you weren't supposed to click and it tries to download something, it gets blocked. I get alerts, all kinds of stuff like that. And then the second thing I do is go into a business and take a look at how do you receive information? Where do you store it? How are you transmitting it? If you're a doctor's office or a bookkeeper or a tax preparer or something, are people taking screenshots and pictures of their taxes and texting them to you? Or do you have a secure portal they're uploading them to? Are you getting all the information over the phone and punching it into QuickBooks? How do you do that? Once I have all that information, then we start taking a look at how we can make that safer and make it better. Once we secure everything, from then on, I'm monitoring everything, and if there's changes, I have people get a hold of me, customers that I've been working with for a year or 2. I got a couple that have been working for 3 or 4 years that still get a hold of me. They'll send me a screenshot of some email they got. "Does this look suspicious? Should I open it?" Or they'll hear something like the CrowdStrike thing when it hit the news and they're calling, "Hey, do I need to worry about this? What am I gonna do?" The flip side of that also is if I see a trend, it's like, "Hey, you got 3 employees and I'm noticing that one of them is clicking all kinds of stuff. We need to hold training on them so that they quit clicking stuff." Or I notice every time you go to this website to download a driver for your printer or whatever, you're getting malware attempts. So I'll get a hold of people and tell them what trends I'm seeing, and that's part of the other thing too. The next step after I look at everything is I also help them come up with a cybersecurity incident response plan in case something does happen, hold training on all their employees and make sure that everybody understands what we're trying to do. I'm trying to build a culture of cybersecurity prevention and awareness so
Gotcha.
that everybody on your team is trying to help instead of just me being the expert and nobody else knowing what's going on.
That's a great point, because what I was gonna say is it sounds like you are making them aware when you're getting a notification from them saying, "Hey, I got this. Is this safe? Can I open it?" It sounds like you're making them aware of things that they weren't even aware about, and that does change the culture. And
Right.
that can extend to the employees depending on the size of the small business, where now everybody is aware of these things that we were not aware of before that could be a potential threat. So that's what it sounds like you're doing is changing the mindset and you're changing the culture within that small business.
And I do really think we need to. It's funny looking at cybersecurity, and I can look at how long it's taken us now, 30, 40 years to start changing the culture where people are starting to understand they need to protect themselves online. That's definitely my goal, to help create a culture that everybody is aware of the dangers and doing what they can to keep themselves safe.
You're exactly right. As technology has grown to be a part of our lives, a part of our everyday lives, what hasn't grown with it is the knowledge of these specific things you're talking about. Clearly, there needs to be not just a culture change in small and large businesses, but like you were saying, even the average person that's using the internet daily, like what I do, I pull up a recipe. I log into a recipe site and I go and find a recipe for chicken. Things like that. I don't know what the average person is doing on the internet. Are they logging into something 30 times a day, 20 times a day? I'm sure there's a statistic on that. But these everyday things we've now incorporated into our lives. I'm a homeschool mom. Only have one student left that I'm getting to 12th grade, but he logs onto a spelling words website. It's a website where I go in and I upload all of his spelling words, and that's how he is practicing his spelling words every day. So even something as simple and harmless as that, he is accessing tech in a way every day for
Mm.
spelling words. All these little websites that we go to, there does need to be a culture shift and a mind shift about how we protect ourselves when we're doing what we think is these innocent little websites. That's to
Yep.
me what I'm hearing you're
And
saying.
that's very accurate. I like that you mentioned your homeschooling kids, because not even just with the homeschooling aspect, but kids in general. When's the last time any parent sat down with their kid and explained to them what a password is and why you have to keep it secret from everybody else? But
Exactly.
yet, you got kindergartners logging on to a computer to do their homework. My grandson is 9 years old. He's in third grade, and this is his fourth year of schooling, and he's done three of them online. But did anybody ever teach him about passwords and about security and about making sure you log off before you walk away and all this other stuff? As parents, we don't even think about that stuff half the time, let alone teaching our kids.
Sure.
And the problem with technology is every generation didn't use it that way. When my daughter was growing up, she didn't get a cell phone until she was like 17. She got a phone when my wife, her mother, decided that she needed to be able to get a hold of us in case something happened on a date or whatever. It was where my grandson had a cell phone in his hand by the time he was 3 or 4 years old. It's not that technology is new and old people don't know how to use it. We grew up in a different environment where everybody in the house didn't have a phone. Everybody in the house didn't have a computer or a tablet. It's a different mindset. And we need to take that security and privacy piece with it and start teaching the younger generations to be responsible online when they're young. So when they get to be our age, it's just second nature.
Yes. My seventh grader, my youngest son that I'm still schooling, he will not remember not having technology, not having the internet. Whereas me at my age, half of my life was spent without the internet. I'm
Right.
53. Pretty much the first half of my life was spent without this type of technology. Obviously, we had technology, it just hadn't evolved into the internet and cell phones yet. Every generation past us, it's become more and more into their daily lives. So my seventh grader will not remember ever having a time in his life where it wasn't part of daily life in some meaningful way, like with schooling. The generations after us, they're not going to know what life it was like without it.
Yeah. It's the same thing with our generation. We've all used computers at work for the majority of the time we've been working, where our parents might have been exposed to them the last few years before they retired, but they didn't start
Right.
out that way. My mom, back when I was a little kid, my mom typed old school typewriter, clickety
Yep.
clackety thing, and pull the paper out. People in our generation, by the time we were in our 20s, computers were not real prevalent, but they were prevalent enough that if you were doing a lot of typing, you had a word processor by then. And now, like you just said, my grandkids, they don't even know what a typewriter is. You know, yeah,
I remember going to work with my mother in the summers when school was out, and she had a job that would allow her to bring me to work. She had a fax machine that she actually took the receiver from an old-fashioned landline phone, and would plug that
Mhm.
receiver down into 2 little they were black. I don't even know what to call them. I don't even have the language for it. That she would put that receiver down there and receive whatever fax was coming in, and that was technology. That was the
Right.
technology that she used in her office.
Yep, exactly. It's a whole different world, and the problem with it is, like you said, the technology is growing at a faster rate than the awareness of the dangers.
Yep.
The same thing is happening all over again with AI.
Oh, yeah?
Everybody's on this bandwagon right now to get AI, write your social media for them, create pictures for you for your website and all this other crazy stuff, which is fine. And I embrace technology. But the bad guys, meanwhile, are using this to advance what a phishing email looks like.
Yep.
So they don't need to send a phishing email out to everybody talking about this is your PayPal receipt because half the people don't use PayPal and know it's fake. They're sending out emails now where they just stalk your internet and see what you post on social media and get an idea of who you are and what you talk about. I can have AI do that in seconds.
Absolutely.
And now I'm sending an email to you, making it sound like it came from your mom talking about cats because you talk to your mom every Friday afternoon and she always sends you a picture of a new kitten or whatever. And you'll never know it wasn't from your mom. Oh, well,
Crazy.
no, here's the newest picture of my kitten. And you just opened it up and bang, now you got malware on your computer.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to small businesses that are storing sensitive client information, like what I do as a practitioner, I have initial consultation forms that I just send them a link and they fill out their pertinent information. That comes back to me. And of course, I print that out. So not only do I have information on the computer, but then I also have paper that contains sensitive information. Does that change how you work within a small business? And what extra protection would you put in place when not only are you protecting the small business, but you're protecting the information about other people that the small business is housing?
Right. Primarily what I focus on is working with businesses that are trying to protect their customers' information that have sensitive information like that, the medical, financial, things like that. PII, we call it personally identifiable information. In a case like what you just said, I would make sure that all that information is encrypted. And what encryption does is it puts it into code. There's rudimentary encryption, like back when you're a kid on the back of the cereal box, you number the alphabet 1 through 26 and you just put the numbers down for what the letters are going to be to spell out a word. It's a lot more complex now with algorithms and math involved in how they do it, but it's basically the same philosophy. I would make sure everything is encrypted. That way, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that information never gets stolen. But if it does get stolen, we don't want it to be readable. We want it
Gotcha.
to be trash for whoever gets a hold of it. The second thing that you want to look at is controlling access. When you're emailing something back to a client, you got to make sure that it's actually the client that's checking that email and not somebody else in their house because they left their computer on or they're sitting in Starbucks and forgot to log out and somebody else is using the computer, password protected, encrypted, multi-factor authentication. There's even ways now to send emails that you can't open unless you put in your phone number and it texts you the code and things like that. That's
Right.
the way you want to protect that information. That also creates an audit trail. If it ever ends up something going wrong, you can look and see exactly where it got opened and when, by who, what computer IP address, so you can recreate what happened and figure it out. Earlier, I had stated that's the first thing I do is take a look at how you receive information and where you store it and all that. And that's what I'm looking at because I'm looking at where you're putting it and how you're doing it. What do we need to do to make that safe? Do we need to encrypt it? Do we need to have backups? Do we need to have all the above? And control access. Are you using share files that everybody can get to, or is it just to the one person? Is the software you're using HIPAA compliant? You could have all the great security in the world, but if you're using Dropbox or something and they have no
Right.
security, then it doesn't really matter. There's a lot of factors that move into that. We need to pay attention to a little bit of everything. I do everything based on risk. In a case like you where you have other people's medical information, that's a pretty high risk. You're gonna wanna make sure you got everything. Now, if you're at home and you got a plumbing business and all you're doing is collecting email addresses for a MailChimp email campaign or something, they may not wanna spend $1,000 on good encryption software, this and that, whereas you may find yourself wanting to do that because you got a higher risk if the data gets exposed. I do everything based on risk and what it involves. We do this in our daily lives anyways. You wake up late for work and it's okay. I got 15 minutes late for work. I can't get a shower and eat. So I'm going to skip breakfast or am I going to skip the shower? And it's, oh, I got a big meeting. I can't skip a shower. Oh, I'm diabetic. I can't skip breakfast. We make these decisions in
Yes.
our daily lives all the time. In a business, you need to write them down so everybody else knows why you made that decision. That's how I work with the cybersecurity. It's all based on risk and what we need to do.
Yeah, you're right, we do, we mitigate risk every day in some form or fashion. With people working remotely more often now, does that increase risk in a security context?
I don't think it increases the risk. I think it changes the risk. If you work in a corporate America and you're in cube land and there's a server stack in the IT closet down the hall, they secure the network and they hope that it trickles down to all the endpoints, the computers. If you're working from home, it's just your laptop and your home router. You don't have all those network issues, but you got your kid the next room over on a PlayStation 5 or your Ring doorbell, your smart refrigerator, your baby monitors, all that stuff hooked up to the same network that you're on with your work computer. That stuff's not really safe. My way of driving that point home is, when's the last time you had to restart your Windows computer because of a software update? Pretty much happens every other week. When's the last time you restarted your Ring doorbell because of a software update? When's the last time you restarted your PlayStation because of a security patch or your washing machine? Never. It got built with, they call it firmware, not software. It got built with software built into it, and that's it. It's there. So 5 years later, and everybody knows how you can go on the dark web and download a YouTube video on how to hack into a PlayStation, and it's still going to be hacked because nobody's bothered to fix it. So there's ways of partitioning your network and making sure that your work computers are segregated and not touching the rest of the stuff. That's what I meant by is different. It's not better or worse. It's just different,
Okay,
basically.
I didn't realize you could partition it in that way.
A lot of I won't say fancier. Some brands of routers have an Internet of Things network that you can put all that stuff on. Sometimes you can use the guest network and have stuff because all those devices really only need internet. The reason why you have a network is so your computer can talk to your printer. That's the main reason why people at home need a network.
Okay.
But your Ring doorbell doesn't need to talk to the printer. Your refrigerator doesn't need to talk to the so let them hack each other all over the place. Stick them all on one network and let them hack each other everywhere. And keep your home computer and your work computer safe by keeping it separated on its own little net. I can show people how to do that.
Couple nights a week, I am stuck in town because of commitments that my 13-year-old has. We live about 30 minutes outside of town. I take him, drop him off, and then pick him up. I'm stuck in town during those couple of hours that he's doing what he's doing. Oftentimes, I'll go find a place where I'm using public Wi-Fi, and not usually doing anything other than just my own personal business. How does using public Wi-Fi play into this? That is more and more popular, especially with people that work out of their home. A lot of time, they just wanna change a venue, and they just wanna get out of their home, go into town, get a bite to eat. Oh, and I'll just take my laptop, and I'll just do a little bit of work there. So how does that change when you're using public Wi-Fi, and what are some protections for that?
My definition of secure network versus unsecure network is if you had to put in a password to log in, you're probably okay. If you got on the internet without putting in a password, like McDonald's, the library, all these hotel lobbies, whatever, then it's not safe. As far as protecting yourself, that's where a VPN comes in. When you see those NordVPN commercials talking about how they can save the world, what a VPN is, think of the internet as a garden hose with a window in it. And you look through the window and you see all the water going through the garden hose. That's the internet. And if you're on unsecure Wi-Fi, everybody can see everything that you're transmitting back and forth, your bank balance, whatever it is. A VPN is where you got a straw. So you stick a straw in and your stuff is in the straw. So now when I'm looking through the window into the garden hose, all I see is there's a straw in there. I can't see what's inside the straw. That's why you want to use a VPN. People will still know it's there. They just won't be able to see into it. As far as what kinds of VPNs, there's several third-party ones you can get. Another thing, your phone's hotspot is a VPN.
Okay.
Instead of using Starbucks free Wi-Fi, get on your phone and use your phone's hotspot.
Okay.
Free Wi-Fi is okay if you're poking around on Facebook doing whatever. I would not be paying bills on there though. You do
Gotcha.
not want to log into your bank on a free Wi-Fi because other people could be listening and intercepting those messages and doing all kinds of stuff. That's definitely where you want to take a look at a VPN or using a hotspot off your phone that's encrypted.
Okay. I'm going to assume that the most common types of cyber attacks that target small businesses, I'm going to guess all these are related to getting financial information, debit card numbers, credit card numbers. In the data that I contain for my clientele, it would be personal information that somebody probably would rather not get out, honestly. I don't really have banking information or anything like that. I'm going to guess most cyber attacks are revolving around wanting to get debit card, credit card information because they're wanting to go and use those numbers to purchase. I think we've probably all experienced having our debit card, whether it's because you're using an ATM and you use an ATM that has a tracer on it or whatever. Would you agree with that? That it's usually related to wanting to get financial information so that information can be used for illegal purchases?
Actually, no.
Really?
Yeah, actually, the opposite is true. You have good sound logic, but it's actually the opposite. Credit card numbers are the most common, what you hear about the most, because they go by volume.
Okay.
That's where people wanna hack into the bank and get all the credit card numbers off of them or Target or Home Depot or Walmart because they got millions of credit card numbers. Just to shape it this way, on the dark web, a credit card number, uh, is worth about $5 to $10.
Huh.
A Social Security number is probably worth about $20.
Wow.
Your Google logon credentials for your Gmail is worth $60
Really?
because it lets you get into the devices. People are always telling me, "Oh, my email doesn't have anything. There's nothing important in there. I don't care," the way you were just thinking. But you don't realize you use it to log into your Android phone. You used it to make your Apple ID to get onto your iPhone. You used it to make your Microsoft account to get into your Windows computer. So getting your email address and your password gives a gateway to all your devices and being able to take them over. So that was the $60 one. A medical record is in the hundreds of dollars
Really?
because you can't change it. Think about this. If I hack you and take over your personal identification, right? You could change your social security number. You can get a different bank card. You can't change the fact that you're 53 years old, diabetic with a mole on your cheek, and all that's in your medical record.
So
So
what
that
is that worth? What
it
would somebody
it's worth
use?
literally I'm not really sure. I'm just telling you, I know you can sell them
Okay.
on the dark web for hundreds and dollars. Literally, they sell for $700 for a medical record.
That is surprising. I've been hacked, my bank. It hasn't happened in several years, thank God. But there for a while, there for, I don't know, a year, 2 years maybe, it seemed like it was happening left and right. So my assumption is they wanna get your debit card or your credit card so they can go
Yeah,
and make purchases because that's what they were doing. They were buying like $700 worth of cell phones. And of course, back then, that was when you could get a cell phone for $100. Nowadays, $700 worth of cell phone, that might not even get you a cell phone. So it was always these purchases. They were making these purchases in another state, in another country. And that's how my bank would alert me because they knew I was not in California. I just always believed it was because you've got people that want to go and either make purchases so that they can turn around and then sell those goods. So they're making money off of
right.
getting your information. So that is shocking.
And that still happens, but that's
Yeah.
small money. That's not the big money. That's why hospitals get uh, targeted so much. When you see these big hospitals and just last year at a little company nobody's ever heard of that runs all the software that the pharmacies use to communicate back and forth when your doctor puts in a prescription, the software, those have all been hacked and had millions of medical records or pieces of medical records taken and stuff like that. So that's the big money behind it. Hacking is just like any other industry. You've got some professionals that are really good and can write code for anything and get into anywhere. And you've got other people that just saw a YouTube video and figured out how to do a little one trick thing or whatever. Plus, it also depends to grossly stereotype the planet. The Russian mafia side of the house is trying to get the credit card numbers and do the purchasing. And the Chinese side of the house is trying to gather information.
Wow. Okay.
They're the ones that want a list of all your employees and people's medical records and all that kind of stuff. They want to gather information. That's
Now,
what
you know
scares us. What are they actually going to use that
exactly.
for? It depends on which hacking community it's coming from as to what their end game is. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter because these guys are wholesalers. They're collecting stuff and selling it to somebody else. It's the same thing Google and Microsoft and everybody else is doing with your marketing information when they scan all your emails for information and sell it to marketing companies.
Yes,
The
exactly.
bad guys are doing the exact same thing, just not legitimate. That's what the wholesalers are after, and there's a pay chart on there, and if it's a medical record, it's worth 10 times as much as the Social Security number.
That is incredible. Okay, I learned something new today, and so did all my listeners, because I
Yeah.
guarantee you every one of my listeners is gonna be shocked about that.
That's the reason
Um,
why HIPAA is such a big deal, quite
yeah,
honestly.
I didn't make that connection. That makes sense. A lot of folks have started using these password managers. Is that a good practice? Do you think those are safe?
I think so, yes. I was late to that party. I used to doubt on them a lot, but in today's world where you have 150 different accounts that you actually have logged into at some point or another and created an account, there's no way you can remember all those passwords without writing them down. So if it's going to be written down, it needs to be encrypted. It needs to be stored someplace that nobody can get to it. Unless you're going to make an Excel file and store it on an external hard drive in an encrypted format that's got double, triple layers of passwords to get into it, you might as well use a password manager. Yes.
And I actually
And
do know people that have created their own and encrypted it like that. I guess that is an option.
people ask me all the time about password managers like OnePass and LastPass and all those and the ones like letting, Chrome save all your passwords or Firefox or something like that, or the thing that comes on your Samsung phone where it's always wanting to remember all your stuff. They're basically all the same. The only difference is the third party ones will remember passwords to your apps too, not just stuff you did in your browser, where
Okay.
the ones for your browser are only remembering browser stuff. The ones on your phones are going to remember all your phone stuff, but it won't know it when you get to your computer. In that aspect, it's more how you use it and what's easier. As far as what's the difference between one or the other, people, oh, I heard this one got hacked or that one got. A couple of them have been hacked, but nobody has ever gotten a password.
Okay.
When they got hacked, all the credit card numbers got stolen out of the accounting side of the house, but the password protection side of the house never has been hacked.
Okay.
They're all basically the same. The difference is how much it costs and the look and feel and customer service side of the house, what you're used to or what you're familiar with or what makes sense to you.
Okay. You mentioned that little feature now when you put your information, you put a password in, or if you're paying a bill, you put your debit card information in and you get that little prompt. Do you want us to remember this for next time? I never do that. I've
Yeah,
never
I
felt
don't do
like
that.
that was, I've never had anybody tell me it wasn't safe, but I'm like, no, I want you to forget it. I want you to forget it the minute I am off this website. So
Yeah,
I never
that's
take advantage of that.
I don't either. Mine is actually for different reasons, not so much on the security side. I don't want all these companies to have my credit card because then you don't never
Sure.
know if you accidentally signed up for auto pay for something or next
That's
thing they're like, "Oh, thanks for subscribing. We just automatically took all the money out of your account, paid for it." No, I'll tell you when I'm gonna pay, not the other way around.
a good point. Okay. How can folks find you? How can they get a hold of you if they're interested? They've heard this interview and they're thinking to themselves, I didn't think about all of these points that he brought up. So if somebody wants to work with you, how can they find you?
My website's right there, cybersecurityforbiz.com. On there, all over the place. Marketing people have to have call to actions. My call to action is set up a free consultation. I've got a little questionnaire that basically name, address, phone number, how many computers you have, stuff like that. Just gives me better information so I can get the right answers for you when we meet. But yeah, set up a free consultation. I'm willing to talk to anybody about anything and see if I can help you. If you just need some pointed in the right direction, that's the end of it. And if you're, wanting me to do it all for you, then we can talk about it. Yep.
Great. Todd, it has really been fun having you on. I knew the first couple of times that we talked, you're just a fun guy to talk to. And this topic is something that I didn't know anything about. I've got a lot of small businesses that listen, and I'm hoping that they've heard something that will convince them that they need to up their cyber security game. And we'll give you a call, even if it's just with some questions. So it's been a pleasure having you on. I want to thank everybody for listening today. I hope that you were able to get some great insight out of this, whether it's personally or professionally. I hope that you learned something today about how you may or may not be protected depending on what your tech habits are. Until next time, I will say goodbye and everybody take care.